серия по Стэнли Парабл. Кто это? Или же Стэнли Парабл? Кому как? Да. Мы остановились на том, как меня не ослепили камеры, и я не увидел кнопки лифта на стене. Что? Это была последняя серия по Стэнли Парабл 2. Ультра Делюкс. Поэтому что кота за хвост тянуть? Поехали! Смотрим. Прощайте. Скоро вы снова увидитесь с этим замечательным видео. А я пока ухожу. Пока!
There was no one here.
Ну, и никто не пришел.
Nobody had come to the press conference to hear Stanley speak, to listen to him talk about what it really means to press the number 3 on a keypad over and over. He was unloved, uninteresting, he was a failure, and in that moment Stanley knew that the bucket would never again take him seriously. There would be no connection, no deeper understanding. The bucket merely sat there in his arms, indifferent. And so it began that slowly, over many years, the two of them grew more and more distant. They spoke less and less, neither wishing to state the obvious, that any sense of real respect between them had eroded since that day at the press conference. There would be no more games, no more long conversations about passion and pursuit. Only a silence that consumed the space between friends. And Stanley, having for once in his life discovered the warmth and comfort of true companionship, was cast back into the unremarkable normalcy of loneliness.
Это было неожиданно. Это было очень неожиданно. Пойдем дальше.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps a good bucket, a strong bucket, a humble bucket, a committed bucket, a bucket of culture and distinction.
Что, не будет нового контента? Нет? Не будет?
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Наверное, это будет последняя серия по Стэнли Парабл. Наверное.
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd find answers. Oh, Stanley, can you feel it? The broom closet. It wants the bucket. You can feel that, can't you? The aura of jealousy. It's as clear as day. This broom closet believes it deserves the bucket. I can really feel it now. It's a bucket. It belongs in a broom closet. That's what the broom closet is trying to say here. It's supposed to go with the other cleaning supplies. Good for you, Stanley. Don't give in. Don't hand over the bucket. I know how hard it must be, given the pressure that the broom closet is putting on your shoulders right now, but you have to be strong. This is your bucket. This is your companion and lifelong friend. You can't hand it over. No. We're getting into name-calling now, it seems. Is this how low the broom closet has sunk, that it has to resort to this stream of petty insults simply in order to get you to hand over the bucket? Stanley, I never liked this broom closet for a variety of reasons, but even this is worse than I had imagined. And wait, now the broom closet has the gall to imply that you and the bucket are not truly deep and lasting friends, that your relationship is purely superficial and convenient, that your life is so banal and meaningless that you'd feel the same sort of kinship towards any inanimate object which happened to lay in your path in an even partially enticing manner. Well, I'd never. Go on, Stanley. Lay into it. Really tell the broom closet off for its demeaning comments. Expand on the wide variety of experiences you and the bucket have shared together. Go through each of them point by point. Share your journal entries detailing the rich emotional landscape of your feelings for the bucket as they have changed and evolved over the years. Let him have it. Okay, I've got you something which I think will help settle this debate once and for all. Here we go.
Приступим.
There. Now it's settled.
Готово.
No more debate, no more discussion. Take a hike, broom closet, with all your meandering philosophical diatribes about the nature of cleaning supplies and their relationship to broom closets in the natural order of things.
Предмет Stanley.
All right, I've got a second sticker back here, and I'm going to slap it on as well because I think it's appropriate. You see, I feel that it works because the sticker is also a bucket. That way, if you're ever unsure whether the thing you're holding is a bucket or not, you can look down at this sticker and say to yourself, ah, it's a bucket. There really is a wide variety of applications for this sticker. You know what? I could take the name-calling and the dismissal of your kinship with the bucket, but now the broom closet is just giving us the silent treatment. And to be honest, I'm sick of the pettiness on display. You can stay here all you like, but I've had it with this impetulant room of cleaning supplies. Easily the most childish such room I've ever been in. I'll see you outside, and we can get on with the story about you and your bucket.
Ладно. У меня есть наклейки.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office. You found one of them. One of the miniature Stanley figurines. Remember, no reward for collecting all of these, only the intrinsic pleasure of a job well done. You can't buy that sort of happiness, Stanley. God knows I tried. So, I implore you to savor each and every moment you come across one of these beautiful figurines. But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished. His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. He looked down at the bucket in his arms. Am I crazy? He asked the bucket. The bucket returned his gaze, but said nothing at all. That's strange, Stanley thought. Usually the bucket is a source of guidance and wisdom for me in difficult times such as these. He held the bucket close, yet felt none of its familiar reassurance and comfort. And that's when Stanley realized, this isn't my bucket. It's just a normal, everyday bucket. Someone else's bucket, perhaps. How did I end up with someone else's bucket? This is all terribly wrong. Surely no good would come from this. Who knows what sorts of bizarre hallucinations Stanley might experience without the psychologically grounding presence of his bucket. And indeed, now he noticed that the rooms were repeating, which was, of course, very odd. And now he felt himself floating off the ground. Oh, gracious, he exclaimed. Without my bucket, I've gone truly mad. Where is it? I must find it. Far off in the distance now, he heard it, calling to him. Stanley! Stanley, it's me! The bucket! Could it truly be? He rushed forward from room to room, passing by one bucket after the next. None of them were his. None of them were his special bucket. Come to me, Stanley! Find me! He had to find the bucket. He had to return to his old friend. It was the only way to truly restore his sanity. And then suddenly, he froze dead in his tracks. He knew where the voice of the bucket had been coming from. The real bucket was inside of him all along. It was incredibly painful. Stanley doubled over in agony and blacked out. This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, picked up her bucket of comfort and security, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town, talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. Right away, she knew what the problem was. This man had no bucket. Of course he'd gone mad, ranting and raving about a narrator describing all of his actions and how everything is predetermined and free will is an illusion and it's all just a video game. It could all have been prevented if only he'd taken his bucket with him. Perhaps he didn't even realize he'd forgotten his bucket at home in the first place. How cruel the world can be, Mariella thought, and she hugged her own bucket even tighter. But of course, she had no time for this. There were a myriad of confusing problems she would soon have to confront at work, for which her bucket would provide absolute guidance and total clarity on everything. Heck yes, she thought to herself, my life kicks ass, and she backflipped all the way to work.
Вот это обычные концовки Стэнли Парабл. Ну, господи, какая-то приколюха из-за этого ведра.
Stanley had never seen the office this brightly lit. Was it a sign of something? He hoped it was. He hoped very much that it was.
Не закроется.
The embrace of an old friend, a weathered companionship that stands the test of time.
Лопнуть шарик. А ну-ка. Я помню, как даже лопнуть вот так. Ага, ага. И как дальше? Мне шарик позволяет. Ага. Опа.
Yes, whispered the bucket into Stanley's ear. We've done it. We've escaped from that dull office and that pesky narrator. At last, out here in the white void, we are alone. Now, and for the first time, I can reveal to you my true self. The bucket began to tell Stanley of its life and its history, of the countless wars it witnessed, desecrating the land and lives of untold numbers of innocent humans, and the bucket's own complicity therein, of sadness and regret, and the many years it spent dwelling on the actions it might have taken to curb the madness and the decay, if only it had been stronger, of hope and redemption, and its crusade to uplift the stock of life for the common man, to manifest justice where none existed, and the bittersweet reality of time, to see one's dreams and wishes met halfway, meted out in parcels like charity, and abandoned as soon as the warm glow of inspiration begins to dim. The opportunities to do so much more. There was so much it could have done, perhaps, the bucket wondered to itself, perhaps if it had seen its own darkness with a clearer perception. This was way too much for Stanley.
What are you talking about?
He screamed.
You're a bucket!
To this, the bucket furrowed its brow.
No,
said the bucket.
not since the evil wizard Gambhorata first ensnared me in his machinations as payback for the sacred amulet I stole from his treasured vaults. I was young back then and could not conceive the ramifications of... No!
Stanley screamed even louder this time.
This is stupid! You are a bucket! This is so stupid! Why are we even doing this?
As Stanley screamed and screamed and screamed, the bucket revealed its true form, transforming into a mighty beast of untold power, its fangs glistening like... My God, Stanley, you did it. You saved us from the bucket. Thank God you already had all 12 emblems of sages and knew the incantations to summon their true power. Otherwise, we would have easily been overwhelmed by the bucket's power. I'm speechless. You've demonstrated such bravery here today. Come, let's restart the game, and we'll agree to never again go trifling with this bucket, nor the dark magic cast away inside of it.
All
of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Сегодня у нас переговорной комнате. Переговорная.
The bucket made Stanley want to be a better man and a better co-worker. In time, perhaps, he would become both of those things.
Ой, эти коридоры огромные.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest, and this was not the correct way to the meeting room. But Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was this better than the meeting room? Yes, Stanley thought to himself. Yes, perhaps it truly was. How insightful the bucket turned out to be. No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yeah.
Oh, well, look who's got cold feet. Well, from here, it looks like the only way forward is down, since the lift won't be coming back, but that's okay. You've got a bucket. Did you know that buckets are routinely used as cushioning devices? It's true. You can fall on a bucket from literally any height and survive. Whoops. Looks like I was wrong. How clumsy of me.
Бывает. Я уже не знаю, что дальше делать. Ну, кажется, уже все перепробовали.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room.
Сиквел на паузе.
Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Если просто...
Not everyone is so lucky to have a bucket, but
Ведро.
Stanley is a very
Самый
lucky
везунчик.
fellow.
Настоящий
Very
везунчик.
lucky indeed.
Если в комнате с этим... Я просто что делать в комнате с...
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest. This
В
was not
комнате
the correct way to the
отдыха.
meeting room,
Если
but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was this better than the meeting room? Yes, Stanley thought to himself. Yes, perhaps it truly was. How insightful the bucket turned out to be.
Я буду с ним просто ходить.
Truly, being here with the bucket was a grand adventure. Stanley reflected on all they'd been through together. First, walking through the door on the right, then walking to the lounge, then arriving at the lounge. What a thrilling journey the bucket had inspired.
Как приключение.
Perhaps this was where the bucket felt most truly at home, here in the employee lounge. Perhaps it's the only place a bucket can even feel at home.
Холодные напитки.
Stanley decided to just give the bucket absolutely as much time as it needed to be in the lounge. Clearly, the bucket and the employee lounge shared a special connection.
Просто с ведром в комнате. Стоим. Сидим. Стоим, сидим. Сидим, стоим. Стоим, сидим, стоим, сидим. Приседаем с ведром. В комнате отдыха. Да. Приседание с ведром. О, боже, приседание с ведром. Это больше, чем скажешь, да? Ладно.
But finally, the bucket was done being in the lounge, and they took the first open door on their left to get back to business. And so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite door.
Может быть. Нет. Помните, была фигурка? Как их всех найти? Как мы можем их найти? Маленькие маленькие объекты. Что мы не знаем? Маленькие объекты, летающие в офисе. Блин, не знаю. Агенда. Красная комната. Мы можем найти. Это я уже нашел. Спасибо тебе. Дальше. Ну, красную комнату я уже нашел. Красную комнату я уже нашел. Там внизу.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Есть еще. У начальника есть.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Вот.
Another miniature Stanley figurine. This, you know, there really must be a snappier name for these things. What about mini Stans? Stanley figs? What about Stanleys? Yes, I think I like that. Another Stanlerine under your belt.
Забавно, где я хочу найти? Можно не выйти отсюда? Нет. Ладно. Четвертый сначала. Ну-ка. Там есть меню? Выйти из меню. Просто интересно. Нет, это стильная пара была. Обычно. Ладно. Смотрите, нам осталось, по сути. Только остальное это наш тим. И все.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. It takes a lot of humility to carry a bucket so magnificent. Stanley checked his ego and then proceeded on. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be.
Я думаю, можно еще раз упасть, но уже на лифте. Уже на лифте упасть можно. В принципе, он пройдет. Ну, на концовке типа. В принципе, мы пройдем все новые концовки. Ну, нужно еще и старые попроходить. Ну, кому это нужно?
And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No, said the bucket. Don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go to the cargo lift.
Можем просто упасть. Можем на лифте упасть.
Good, said the bucket. Now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you...
But Stanley feared that any path he walked might lead to the separation of himself and the bucket, his dearest friend. So he threw himself to his death, that they might die in one another's arms. How deeply touching.
Но где нам фигурки Стэнли найти? Стенгурки. Где и как?
Already this was uncomfortable, and Stanley decided that as soon as he found a new space he felt safe in, that he would never leave it again in his life.
Вот как будет место, где им будет комфортно, но он оттуда не выйдет. О. Input.
Stanley cradled the bucket in a gentle embrace, protective yet delicate, assertive yet compassionate. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his... This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was this better? No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back, and so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite door.
Я не знаю уже, что делать. Ну, попытаемся, конечно, с тобой руки найти. Большая комната с коробками. Где-то с красным. Тут подсказки есть. О, большая комната, где есть много коробок. Что-то с красным и синим. Что-то с красным и синим я знаю где. Нам уже заново. Что-то с красным и синим. Где красное и синее, я знаю. Я знаю, большая комната с коробками.
How long was I sitting there? Stanley wondered to himself. Minutes? Days? Centuries? Did something crucial happen while my senses were turned? He made a note to be more careful with time from now on.
Так, ведро не берем, нельзя с ведром выходить.
When Stanley came to a set of two open... This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. It was okay.
Ничего такое.
But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't 5 years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really am not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. What? Really? I was in the middle of something. Do you have zero consideration for others? Are you that convinced that I want something bad to happen to you? Why? I don't know how to convince you of this, but I really do want to help you, to show you something beautiful. Look, let me prove it. Let me prove that I'm on your side. Give me a chance. Now listen carefully, this is important. Stanley, okay, I'm going back to the name of these little Stanley figurines, and now I'm torn between Stanlerines and Figlies. What do you think, Stanley? What name better encapsulates the intrinsic sense of happiness that you get from seeing a small number in the corner of your screen go up by 1? Let me sit on it. I'm sure it will come to me.
Отлично, еще одна статуэтка. Большая комната с коробками. Большая комната с коробками, кто-нибудь знает?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Input. С множеством коробок. Где может быть комната с коробками? Пойдем еще посмотрим.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Fireplace, лестница, большая комната, boxes, woods of boxes, даже с множеством коробок. Так, смотри. Большая комната с множеством коробок. Это первый. А это приватное, но вонючее место для важной персоны. Что это за место такое? Ты должен их найти. Я не знаю.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
У меня есть предположение, что
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Но не уверен. Вот комната с множеством коробок. Я не знаю.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly.
Oh, Stanley, is that you? Hold on, sweetie. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm just pulling the bread out of the oven. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, now, I want you to come in and tell me all about your day.
Gotcha! Oh, come on. Did you actually think you had a loving wife who'd want to commit their life to you? I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something. Come inside. Let me show you what's really going on here.
Я думаю, что вот...
Sorry, but you're in my story now.
Ясно. Значит, не вот тут.
This is a very sad story about the death.
Знаете, я не знаю, что за комната с большим коробок и что за вонючее мясо. Я не знаю, где эти фигурки Стэнли. Смотри, я не знаю, как найти эти фигурки. Честно. Но мне пришлось поглядеть немного в интернете. И
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Понимаете? Я бы никогда не додумался, что в этом месте, о боже, опять эту перестройку сделали, что в туалете босса может быть
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Я так и не понял, что это такое. Было написано, давайте в правую дверь, держаться подальше от пути. И найти какую-то комнату с коробкой.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
И вот сейчас вот дверь слева, я не понял, что это такое. И вот тут должен да.
You're getting close now, Stanley. You've nearly gotten all of the Figler and Marines. Very soon, you'll collect the last one, and then the first number will equal the second number, and that will be it. We'll be different people by then, different in the sense that we used to have none of them, and now we have them all. You can't go back to when you had no Figler and Marines. None of us can.
Ну, невозможно. А второе, я не знаю где. Надо пройти, было написано, в правую дверь, держаться что-то подальше от пути. Я что-то вообще не помню.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Нам надо войти в правую дверь. Господи. Не зря тут это... Что-то есть, я уверен.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
Я не понял.
It was okay.
Ничего такая.
But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
В этой игре.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
Ну, типа должно быть фигура. Что? Серьезно?
And there it is, the last Stigley Wiggly. Savor this moment, Stanley. This is a real accomplishment. This is doing something just for the sake of doing it. Where so many people expect to be rewarded for the most trivial achievements, you've insisted that a job well done is its own reward. I would tell you that I'm proud of you for collecting them all, but that would be like a reward, and we can't have that. So, instead I'll just say, it's done. We're all done here. And now we can go to whatever the hell you were doing before you hunted for figurines.
Серьезно? Ну, давай выпадем.
But in his eagerness to prove that he...
Бум. И не побольше Стэнли. Не думал, что падение с такой высоты телепортирует начало игры. Удивительно. Сколько времени? Кто-нибудь это знает точно? Наверное, нет. Разумеется, нет. Никто ничего не знает. Даже мы с вами друг друга не знаем. Мы как незнакомцы. Да, конечно, мы настроили игру под ваши требования, но кто делает по-другому? Это просто моя работа. И теперь она окончена. Вся информация собрана, с вас больше нечего узнать. И вы все равно не знаете меня, а я не знаю вас. И мы не знаем, сколько сейчас времени. Видимо, некоторые настройки не настроить. Но, если честно, часы все равно ничего не делают. В следующем запуске игры меня здесь не будет. Ничего. Ведь игры были созданы для одиночек. Вы ведь... Вам ведь нравится одиночество? Возможно, это единственная важная информация о вас. Что ж, мне пора идти. Есть еще одна настройка, которую мне нужно изменить, но мне нужно время, чтобы подготовиться. И это не совсем в описании моей работы, но это нормально. Возможно, вы увидите меня снова, если можете меня найти. Говорите в ближайшее время. Приветствую, уважаемый зритель. Конец. Конец Stanley. Это была шедевральная игра. Я очень расстроена, что она закончилась. Но ничего. Скоро будет еще много разных игр, которые будут, конечно, не будут круче, не будут круче этой, но они будут неплохими, наверное. Но, к сожалению, это конец. Это конец Stanley Parable 2. Грустно сознавать, что такая большая игра закончилась так быстро. Такая громадная, такая огромная. А игра просто закончилась в одно мгновение. Печально. Ну, нечего расстраиваться. Нечего расстраиваться. Наверное. Ну ладно. Больше сделать здесь нечего. Поэтому я ухожу. В этот раз навсегда.